This is Rick Rule of Rule Investment Media for the Mining Journal Select Conference in London, July 1st and 2nd. I look forward to meeting many of the people who will be listening to this recording at the Mining Journal Select Conference in London. We're trying to interview as many of the presenters and exhibitors in the conference before the conference so that you, the attendee, have the ability to allocate your time and your capital more efficiently at that conference. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing an old friend of mine, at least figuratively, a friend of long standing, Gord Neal, CEO of World Copper. Gord, first of all, welcome and thank you for your ongoing sponsorship of the Mining Journal Select events.
Thanks for having me, Rick. It's always a pleasure, and it's a great institution.
Gord, you and I have known each other for a long time, but you're probably new to some of the people who will be watching this video. So tell me something about your background. Tell me something about how you became CEO of World Copper, and tell me about the appropriate resumes of any of your other people who will be working to advance shareholder interests.
Yes. Well, I started in this business in 2002 with Peter McGaw and Dan McGinnis at Mag Silver. Um, I have the pleasure and I guess the history of somehow stumbling into good assets that actually add value to shareholders over time. The Mag Silver asset was an incredible asset. It's one of the best silver projects in the world. I was brought up, and again, I'm a late starter in the business, but was the VP of Corporate Development for Mag Silver. And as today, Mag is returning shareholders quite good dividends and quite good returns. I went from there to I learned that was an exploration and development situation. So I decided I wanted to learn about production. So I looked in the silver space and tried to find some of the best assets in the space and thought I found them at Silver Corp Metals with Ree Fang. Ree really knows how to run an operation, provides dividends for his shareholders and great returns, and knows how to run a narrow vein underground operation, which is difficult to get returns on. So Reed picked me up in 2016, and I wound up working with him as VP Corporate Development for Silver Corp for about a year and a half. Then he found, excuse me, he found an asset in Bolivia, a silver sand asset, and couldn't run both companies as CEO. He did, but he asked me to step in and help him with New Pacific Metals and their assets in Bolivia. So I spent 6 years in Bolivia, almost 7 years in Bolivia, back and forth, long haul flying. But again, it was another asset that turned out we have two major discoveries there with the silver sand deposit and Carangas. And again, took those to shareholders and added value from, I think it was 100 million market cap when we started. And when I left, it was 1.5 billion. So adding shareholder value is an important aspect of what I can do. I was the president there. Then I left because we handed it off to a builder, which was Andrew Williamson, who's now building that asset. And I took a bit of a break and then decided that I was going to get into the tin business, which I was in there for a short period of time. It wasn't really the asset or the commodity that I could really turn. So I was approached by Hank Van Alphen at World Copper. He's the chairman, and said, "Look, would you help me with World Copper?" So I'm now the CEO of World Copper, and I've been the CEO since January. And I can happily say that the returns that we provided so far to investors on a value basis is almost 250, 300% return since I've gotten there. But the story is an interesting story. Again, I've been handed two what I think exceptional assets in the copper space.
Let's talk about those assets. They are respectively Zonia, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, in Arizona, and Escalones, which I know well, in Chile. Let's start with Zonas. Give us a brief overview of Zonas, why you feel it's attractive, what you feel its competitive advantage relative to other development copper assets is.
Well, I kind of tell the David and Goliath story here. Most of the 85% of the world's copper deposits are sulfide deposits, and they're concentrator deposits in terms of their production. 15% are oxides. We happen to have at Zonia an oxide deposit. It is It is in Arizona, and Arizona is the best copper place to work for copper in the United States. It produces 71% of all of the copper in the United States. Zonia is on private land, and that's important. And it's a past producer. Being a past producer on private land allows us to get it back into production and get the permits to do that fairly quickly, as opposed to being on BLM land. It's also been pre-stripped because it was a past producer to a 1-to-1 ratio. It has power on site. It has water on site. All of those attributes make it one of the best assets, uh, in our opinion, in the copper space. And it's not only my opinion. 2 years ago, Derek White, who was the ex-CEO of KGHM and built the Carlotta copper mine just down the road from Zonia, approached me and said, I don't know why you don't put Zonia into production. It's easy. It can be done inexpensively. We can do it quickly, and it's got all of the attributes I just laid out. And the copper world needs copper. And if you can get it into production, he believes. He is my head of technical. He actually approached me 2 years ago, but then when I became president, I went back to him and he said, "Oh yeah, no, I'm still bullish about Zonia, and I will help you put it into production." So he's my head of technical. He is a consummate mine builder. If you have Dirk White on your list of technical people, you're going to build a mine. We're going to build this, and it is we're going to be able to add, as he has told me, 70 million pounds a year for 10 years through Zonia into that copper deficit that we now face.
Tell us something now about Escalones. Let's go south to Chile.
Yeah, Escalones is a wonderful project as well. Now it's a bigger project than Zonia. It's 426 million tons, 3.5 billion ounces of oxide copper. It's got road access. There's power there because we have a gas pipeline on site. We could get our power from that. Water is always a challenge in Chile, so we'll have to figure that out. The One of the issues with Escalones is that the Chilean government just recently, in November of last year, put it in what's called a sanctuary of nature, which is a little disconcerting because we don't really know what that means. Number one, we're still trying to find out. But the second thing is we think that will delay our getting our permits significantly, and it's already fairly challenging to get a drill permit in Chile. The 426 million tons I referenced are in the inferred category. So to add value for shareholders, I need to move that into a lower risk category of measured and indicated, which I need to drill it to do that. Having my drill permits delayed is challenging. However, I just recently found out that the Sanctuary of Nature Foundation that this is in is looking possibly at giving us what's called a multi-use permit inside of the sanctuary. I have to go down to Chile to confirm this, to talk to the head of the foundation and to the government. But if that's the case, then it actually puts Escalones back on track. But I'll have more news about that as we move forward.
Gord, it's nice for me to be at a conference where the projects have been pre-vetted by the Mining Journal staff. I agreed to do this because they've done so much work ahead of time, which I believe validates a lot of the deposit stories around the issuers. To the extent that the attendees and the listeners to this video would like to know more about World Copper before the Mining Journal Select Conference in London, who can they contact and how can they contact that person?
The best person to contact is myself. I'm G Neal at worldcopperltd.com is my email address. And my phone number, my direct cell number is 604-657-7813. And as you know, Rick, I've been dealing with investors since time immemorial. And the most important, we can't do what we do without shareholders. So my primary job, in my opinion, is to add, when you say add value, but if somebody gives me $1, I have to give them back $5 or $10. That's my goal. And that's from an investor standpoint. I always look at it that way. I've worked almost all of the companies that I've worked for to that position. I've gotten good returns for shareholders and myself. I'm a shareholder of World Copper. I own 3 million shares. So I'm looking at making myself some money as well as my shareholders.
Ladies and gentlemen, the best possible answer as to who you can contact regarding the affairs of the company is the CEO when he or she says the buck stops with me. You just heard that. Gord, thank you so much for subjecting yourself to this interview. Thank you, too, for your ongoing sponsorship of the Mining Journal Select Conference, July 1 and 2 in London. It's been a pleasure having you on.
Thank you, Rick. Always a pleasure to meet with you.